The Timestopper. My superpower is stopping time, and I am responsible for some of the worst tragedies of the last 30 years. Not on purpose, but I am responsible nonetheless. Let me explain. As far as I can tell, I was born with the ability to stop time. When I was a baby or a toddler, whenever I would get upset, time would stop. My parents told me this led to all sorts of accidents around the house. As I would get upset, cause time to stop, it caused all sorts of accidents. I caused my mother to fall down the stairs. I caused a car crash when I got upset on a car ride. I caused my father to fall on his lawnmower and lose his hand. My parents tried to appease me, to give me what I wanted so I would not get upset. It never worked. And so they started to ignore me instead. When I was 8 years old, or old enough to understand, they sat me down after dinner one night and told me that when I get upset, time stops, because time stops only for other people and not for the physics of machines and other animals. This can cause all kinds of accidents. They told me all the accidents I had caused and then showed me all the accidents that I had probably caused. Plane crashes, industrial accidents. I sat in horror for the rest of that night, unable to sleep with the knowledge that I had probably caused the death of thousands or maybe even millions of people. And so I decided that I would never cry again. I would never yell again. I would never allow myself to get upset. I would never allow any accident to happen again. I would stop going to my after-school ball games. I would just go home and sit by myself where I could not hurt anyone. My teacher, a very warm and lovely lady named Angela Bunnelly, noticed the change in my behavior and asked me to come to counseling. She started by asking about my days, asking what my home life was like, and why I stopped going to basketball and doing other things I liked. I did not want to tell her that I could stop time, but I liked her and I trusted her, and eventually I decided to tell her the whole truth. I remember she did not say much. She just nodded and smiled and told me to have a good evening. The next day I came into school and everything seemed normal. Then Mrs. Bunley called me in for our meeting, and she was there, along with my parents. My parents denied telling me that I could stop time, and Mrs. Bunley warmly but gently told me that it was just not logical. I did not try to argue. I signed a paper that said I would not lie, and since I could not argue against 3 grown-ups, I acquiesced and talked no more about stopping time. The meetings with Mrs. Bunnelly really did not progress much after that. She kept pressing me to go to basketball and art class, but I would tell the coach I was sick or sit in the corner and not draw. Time kept marching on, and eventually I graduated elementary school. And while everyone was starting middle school and dating, I kept to myself. I studied meditation in order to quiet any emotion I had. I do not know where the time went. It all seems like a blur, and I do not remember much of it. I remember a lot of yelling from my parents, a lot of long afternoons sitting in my room or in a field alone. A few awkward encounters where a girl would ask me out, and I would say that I could not do that. It was a very sad and lonely time. Eventually, I graduated high school, and I thought it would be different when I got out in the real world and could do anything I wanted. I somehow got a scholarship to a really good art school, and I got all my books, and it was a really bright and optimistic time in my life. To say I was not ready for college was an understatement. I came from a small town, and I spent most of my time alone. This place was like a city. The college had 20,000 students, and none of them were people I was familiar with. The course load was a lot, too, and I spent my lunches in the bathroom and the breaks in my car unsuccessfully trying to calm my nerve. I made it one semester, but in my second semester I began to dissociate and have panic attacks every day. I tried to suppress them, but it seemed like the more I did that, the worse they got. I felt time stop. I saw myself separate from my body. One day I had a really bad panic attack, and the next day I read about a really bad shooting. I could not shake the feeling that I was somehow responsible. Even if it was not my fault, if there was even a 1% chance it was, I knew I had to stop school. So I left school, discommunicated myself from my parents, and I took a bus west. I was going to live alone, in nature, completely cut off, completely at peace. That lasted a few weeks until the money I had saved up started to wane and I began to panic. Winter was setting in and I did not really have a plan and I had no idea what to do. A kind-looking man must have known there was something wrong because he approached me at a coffee shop and asked if I was okay and if he could help. I knew not to tell him all the facts of the past, but I told him the truth, more or less, and told him I had dropped out of college. He helped me find a simple job and gave me the address of a cheap motel. He told me he worked at the local shelter doing counseling and psychiatry. I wound up going to his office a few weeks later. Over the course of a few weeks, the kind-looking man, Mr. Brooks, talked to me about school and anxiety and prescribed me some antidepressants. I started working as a dishwasher and got into reading about Vipassana meditation. He suggested I should make some friends and I told him that was not a great idea. That was when I let slip something about being able to stop time. Mr. Brooks did not say much and we continued to talk over the next few months. He seemed pretty certain that my parents had a messed up relationship and that they were just blaming me and made up a story that made me responsible. I had to admit it made more sense than this unexplainable superpower I had never really seen much evidence of. Winter turned to spring and I was genuinely starting to feel like I was living life again. My life was simple, but I enjoyed the walk to work, sitting at coffee shops and talking to my fellow dishwasher friend, Emily. We shared a love of anime and I hung out with her on a few occasions, though I was still too scared and insecure to do more than just hang out. Things were going well. Then the planes hit the two towers on September 11th. It had been a really stressful day for me. I had a late night. I had a really bad panic attack. I did not know the terrorists. There's no way to know if I had stopped time at 9 o'clock on that morning and if that had any effect on the outcome. But there was that small chance that it was my fault. I told Mr. Brooks about this and he flat out said that it was ridiculous. I smiled and acquiesced and said that he was probably right, and then I went back to my motel. Yes, he was probably right, but he could still be wrong. I opened the bottles of all of my pills, antidepressants and anxiety pills, 40 or 50 in total. I took them all, slowly, with a few beers. I did not want to risk anything ever happening again, and if I stopped my heart and did not have any more emotions, nothing bad could ever happen again.